Hello, and welcome to the Kathleen Spracklin podcast. I am a woman on a mission to help you get the Zettelkasten of your dreams on your work table beside you. Well, this episode is a very, very special one. We have a roundtable discussion on sharing a Zettelkasten with youngsters. So without further ado, I'm going to switch on over to our group view for our roundtable discussion, and I hope you will enjoy this very, very special program. See you over there. Oh, thank you all for coming. This is wonderful. Oh my goodness. Now, all of you are more credentialed than I am in this topic, and Deb isn't with us at the moment anyway. She's the one that launched it. What are we going to do to pass this on to the young people? So I want to just be the moderator here and, let you folks share the magnificent ideas that have been coming across in the comments. I have never seen a topic bring out that much involved discussion. I have to say I'm thrilled. Okay. Wilk, would you introduce yourself, and then I'll have everybody introduce themselves as well, because you're the newcomer here.
Yeah, is my mic working, I guess?
Yeah, it is.
All right. My name's Will Chancellor. I live in eastern North Carolina, Bath, North Carolina. I've been in education for about 12 years. I was a PE teacher, a lonely PE teacher to start off. I started in a classical education school, private school. I did that for about 6 years, and then I became an administrator, dean of curriculum type position, and then that led to principal, where I was about 5.5 years. And for the last year and a half, I've been homeschooling 3 out of my 4 children.
Wow.
That's a lot of work.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Julianne, so I'm going to call on you next.
Okay. Well, I actually dithered about whether I should join this call because my only experience in education is with adults at work. And I don't have children. I have nieces. They're all grown now. So all I have are opinions. But I've got opinions, and Kathleen wanted me to be here. So if Kathleen wants me, I come calling. So yeah, I'm coming on a year as a member of LiLLiPub. I feel like it's getting close to that. And I'm just way into the Zettelkasten. It's doing amazing things for me, and it's not possible for all of that to happen without thinking back to, oh, what if? So that's me.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm next to Julianne on my screen, so I'll go ahead and introduce myself. And I'm thrilled that Deb is here now because she's the one that launched this whole topic and got us going. But Julianne leads our Zettelkast program on the LiLLiPub YouTube channel. She got it started. It was her brainchild. And a number of us, 5 of us, are working on co-authoring a novel, which is kind of a crazy idea. But actually, it's not 5 of us writing, it's 10 of us, because we're using our Zettelkastens as co-authors as well. So thank you for that. I'm along with Victoria Crowder. She and I founded LiLLiPub, and our purpose is our original goal was to train writers and to help writers become published authors and help everyone just develop their abilities to their maximum potential. And we've just really enjoyed working with writers. And now with the Zettelkasten group that we've brought in, and Mel has joined us with his old books project and resurrecting logic systems from the medieval times. We've branched out. And we're a broader group now. So we're covering a broad range of topics, but we seem to have a really interested group of people. That's me. I'm just the founder.
Just the founder.
Yeah.
Nobody special, just the
Well,
founder.
actually one of 3, but our third founder backed away because of crisis in his family very early on. Quentin Payne was one of the 3 founders, but he couldn't remain. Okay, Bev.
Oh, I'm nobody. Hi.
Wrong.
I am a mother of 4 grown adult children, and I am helping raise my grandchildren that are 4 and 2. When I worked, I'm retired. Although I work harder now than I did when I worked, I promise you. I worked with HIV and AIDS patients. to make sure that they had the medication that they needed to stay alive. And I loved my job very much. I'm from California. I reside in Ohio, unfortunately. I love my Zettelkasten, and my goal is to teach my grandchildren how to use it. My oldest, well, I've got 12 grandchildren. I've only got 2 I'm raising, so we're good there. The 4-year-old will be 5 years old in August, and she starts school about 10 days after her birthday. So I want her to start off correctly so she can carry it through her whole life, whether we start with pictures or whatever the case may be. And the other one is only 2 years younger than her. She'll be 3 in August. And so what big sister does, little sister follows. And
Yeah.
so that's where I'm at. So, and I'm here because Kathleen asked me to be here. I don't usually get to make meetings because usually my house is total chaos. Or I'm running somewhere to do something else. So, but I'm glad to be here tonight.
I'm thrilled to have you, Bev, because you're the principal advocate for teaching Zettelkasten to the very young. And I just loved your remarks. And the whole idea of making a Zettelkasten a memory box is
Yeah, well, she's learning her letters. I mean, she can identify them. She just hasn't started writing them yet. And so I was trying to figure out how I could utilize it and get her used to, because, she sees grandma's boxes and I'm constantly working on mine, and she's always asking questions. And if I leave my desk, one of them is up here drawing on one of my cards, They find I try and hide my pens and, no, it doesn't work. They find them. And so, that was the first thought was, well, they love to draw, they love to paint, they love to do all of the above and then some. And so why wouldn't you? I mean, and like we were discussing, I can write whatever story they're telling me. Like for Mother's Day, my granddaughter drew this really cute picture, and she told everybody that walked in the house that she made that for Grandma.
Oh,
That this was her and this was Grandma, and Grandma was like Mommy, and she went through the whole thing on why she drew Grandma Mother's Day. So I could write all of that on there, hold the picture, put it in her Zettelkasten. And so, when she's an adult, she will have all of her memories from being young. I don't remember my childhood for the most part, and I would love to have something like that, so yeah.
thank you, Bev. Jane, would you introduce yourself, please?
Of course. Bonjour tout le monde. This is your token Canadian.
Yay, Canada.
I live in Edmonton, Alberta. You might have seen some pictures of my beautiful province on the news lately. We recently hosted the G7 leaders here, and it's just as beautiful as it looks. I'm so lucky to live here. I am a professor of history at the University of Alberta, but I just went on a medical leave, and this will be news to friends here, Kathleen and Julianne and others. Long story for another time. The good news is I can't do too much work on my work writing, which Kathleen and the rest were helping me with in the fusion writing sessions on Saturday morning. Obviously, I'm a nonfiction writer, but by learning Kathleen's, especially Kathleen's approach to the effortless numbering system, I was able to reinvigorate a Zettelkasten after many years of not using note cards to help to kickstart my research, help get me back on track. And that was going pretty well until it didn't. I have an extra administrative role, which I've had for the last 3 years, and these have been pretty tough years in higher education for a whole bunch of reasons, very stressful. So here we are. But I have a 25-year-old son who's in the UK doing a graduate degree now, but keeping his Zettelkasten. He's just doing bid cards for now, Kathleen, but when he gets home, he's going to try to build out some main cards and build proper boxes out of it. But I was thinking, prompted by what Bev had written in the comments there, thinking about him as a very young child, so, 3-4 years old, where they love to make up stories about things, and they love making songs about things. And oh, how I wish I had all of those somewhere, and he does too. So when we get into it later, I'll tell you I had a couple of ideas Bev, that might help to supplement some of the things you were saying, because I think you're right on about thinking of it as a memory box that could become organized differently once letters and numbers
Put in.
under their belts and writing and things like that. I think that's great. But I'm also planning, when I eventually get back to work, to teach my students a little bit about Zettelkasten and how to do bib cards in particular as part of helping them learn to be good university students. One of my courses is for our history majors, and I'm supposed to be teaching them the theories of history and all this kind of stuff, but they have trouble knowing how to take notes and knowing how to use books. There's tons of information coming at them. They sit with their laptops frantically trying to write down every word I say, but that's not how you learn. And so part of the great thing about Zettelkasten is that it can help you to learn how to learn. And like going back to Adler's book, Kathleen, How to Read a Book. And I think I can give them a few exercises relating to, where's the library and how do I use it kind of thing. And also they're going to need to do a lot more handwriting because of AI. All my colleagues and I are making them do in-class handwritten exams again because...
Silver lining. Love it.
Yeah, so they need to practice, right? So it has to be an analog Zettelkasten.
Absolutely.
Better. So that's enough for me, I think. Okay. Great to meet those of you that I haven't met before. Great to see you.
Okay. Ellen, you're in the next box on my screen. Will you introduce yourself, please?
Okay, Ellen McCormack in St. Louis, Missouri. And like Will, my undergrad was in physical education. I did that for 2 years and then entered the convent. And they said to me, you'll never teach phys ed. And I'm like, okay, as long as I can teach. So I taught 2 years of phys ed, loved it, coaching, refereeing, all that. And so I'm retired now, but I taught about 44 years. I've had 2-year-olds, every age, every level of education through graduate school and seminaries.
Wow.
So loved it all, prefer adults. God bless the little ones. What I loved about the 2- and 3-year-olds, trying to teach them religious education in an Episcopal school setting, what they taught me was, you just got to be in the moment with these kids, just in the present moment. What a great thing to learn, And then I have to share this because I'm like, holy, this is happening right in front of me. They sit crisscross applesauce on a circle in front of the rug in front of you, and you're teaching a 2-minute lesson. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm seeing a diva in the making right in front of me.
That's my oldest granddaughter, by the way.
Oh my gosh. So, I can just relate to everything that you guys are sharing. Let me tell you how I got onto this call. I'm not on a medical leave because I'm retired, but May 1st, I was visiting my nephew in Colorado, there to attend. He's got 5 kids. They just lost a 7-month-old in utero. No. But anyway, I was there from May 1st, May 5th, I'm in the hospital. Oxygen was so low, you got the flu. Anyway, I've not been well since May 1st.
Oh my.
And my niece flew home with me May 9th. Anyway, to make a long story short, I'm undergoing tests. Now I have to see specialists. But, I love my life. It's just so simple. Yeah. Jane, you were talking about you can't do this or you can't do that. And it's like, I can't either.
It's great.
Yeah. I'm not running around. I do my little cooking, or I can run to the store. And so let me tell you what caught my attention. Whatever Kathleen Spracklin is doing, I want to support, right?
Absolutely.
And the way Kathleen's mind works excites me. I am an integrationist by training through my doctoral work and stuff. And I just love this. I'm going to show you this real quick. So I have 3 I don't have kids either, Julianne. I'm in that camp. But here is a picture. Now you can see it's like 3 ships or something.
Mhm.
He was 5. He's 9 now. And then I got this from his little brother.
Oh.
I got a lot of those.
And
Yeah.
and I've had enough grand nieces and nephews to say, what the hell is that? I don't do it. But I just love this idea of getting children from when they're very young to tell their stories and to have, I wish I would have said to, honey, what does this mean?
Right.
I didn't think to do that.
Yeah.
These were wrapped up and given to me and at whatever party. But now I would know to do that.
Yeah.
And then I think the Zettelkasten, I have everything I need for the Zettelkasten. I've tried like 3 times, 3 different ways. And anyway, I'm writing my nonfiction, guys. It's happening. So I'm like, maybe I have to start with the children. But I think, so the one who made this one at 5 is now 9, and he's really smart and he loves to read, and he does these chapter books or whatever. You guys will know some of that. And I thought he could learn to do bib cards.
Oh, yeah.
And then I could teach him to say, I could teach him main card. Just get that main card down.
Yeah.
And to say, let's file these because, I think he'll be the mayor of St. Louis at some point. So it's just great, Deb. It's so good to see you. I've been in my own world. Some of it's been intentional. And so I'm just grateful that I found this and saw this. And Kathleen's like, yes, join us.
Yeah. We've missed you, Ellen, so I'm glad that you're well enough at least to join us today.
Yeah, thanks.
And finally, our star here, the very person who got the whole thing going, who proposed the whole question of bringing Zettelkasten to children.
Wow.
Host from the Zettelkast show that got us this whole project going, Deb Hart. Deb, would you introduce yourself, please?
Oh, okay. Hi, I feel actually quite privileged to be in your company. This is quite the group, quite the group. Yeah, so I'm so happy to be here. But the thing is, I keep thinking, where would I be at 7? I had started a Zettelkasten.
Yeah.
I'm 77 now. So from 7 to 77, what a treasure trove, I would have. One of the things that's happening with me is something I call a brain sieve. brain sieve. Yes. I'm talking along, and all of a sudden, the word will just fall through my sieve. It'll just, brain sieve. So a Zettelkasten would kind of help me with that. It would offset that, And if I had been keeping it from 7, maybe it would stop it altogether. It wouldn't even be happening.
Yeah.
The idea of being able to gift this idea, this methodology to children from the beginning is, a kind of a wish fulfilled. I can't do it for myself, but I can, I can propose it for others. And I don't have any grandchildren. My daughter is 40, but the idea is that, and she doesn't have any children, but the idea is, okay, let it, like Julianne was talking on our, it's about them youngins, Zettelkast.
Episode 38 for anybody who hasn't heard it.
Okay. Episode 38, right. So what she said was, why theorize? Why theorize? Let's see if we can get this going, actually do it. And I'm all for it. Who am I? Ex-IT from 20 years ago. So I mean, it's been so long, and the technology has changed so much. I'm hesitant to even talk about IT at this point, because it's a whole different thing than it was when I was doing it. And that was then, and this is now. Onward and upward, forward we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Deb. And Genevieve has joined us. Genevieve, what we're doing here is we're all taking a couple of minutes to introduce ourselves. Are you in a spot where you can come online and do that?
Not really. I'm driving right now, so maybe later.
All right. So we'll let you just be fly on the wall for this point in time. Well, the whole purpose of this get together came about as we've been saying, as Deb brought about in her episode of the Zettelkast, where we take turns leading the show with questions that we proposed for the group. And Deb proposed the whole question of bringing the Zettelkasten to young people. And it just engendered such an exciting discussion that I decided to do a mini series on it on my Zettelkast show, and it's brought us all together. So I want to throw the scene open to whoever would like to contribute. So Will, you are in the trenches with young people, teaching them right now. Where do you see this fitting in for your family?
Well, I made that one post about differentiating between the three categories of taught information. And I'm pretty sure I got that from Adler. I can't remember where the source is directly, but I think it could be looked up. But we used to teach that all taught information can be divided into kind of three groups. Concept, and the teaching form of a concept would be, I believe, a didactic, like just a lecture type of delivery, rote memorization, that type of thing. And then skills, which would be mimetic, do as I do. And then the third and most challenging would be the idea. And that would be more of like a Socratic dialogue type of thing. And when I was thinking about y'all's original conversation, my mind immediately went to skills for the young ones, because I feel if you model the behavior long enough, you're developing some sort of skill set to be able to make the practice easier. Because I think the concepts of a Zettelkasten are so, they're not necessarily hard, but when you put them all together, it's a little overwhelming and maybe a bit much for maybe under first grade. So obviously we don't want to start there. And then of course, in my experience, Socratic dialogue is really null and void until they get to be about the grammar, past the grammar phase into the logic phase. So like middle school, maybe as early as fifth grade. We've had a little bit of success in fifth grade, introducing my students to a curriculum called Lost Tools of Writing, which is just kind of an Aristotelian approach to persuasive writing, but it's popular within the classical paradigm. So we use that, but we had to modify it so much for the fifth grade mind that it really was just reading a fiction story and kind of acknowledging this is a character and this is an action that they did. And then I could maybe lead a dialogue in a direction, but really it passed. Before that, it was more just skill-based in concepts. Yeah. So with that being said, I focus more on those skills. And for my kids, I knew instantly. I found the Zettelkasten maybe through Scott, maybe 8 months ago, give or take, and then found you, Kathleen, probably 4 months ago, and consumed everything that you had. And what I realized was that my kids definitely could benefit from this kind of thing. We have already started journaling. That was something that I did about 1.5 years ago and just switched over completely. And my 10-year-old was really into that. She enjoys writing down her feelings, expressing different things she feels before bed or something like that, maybe like a prayer or something. And so those were working really well. And so when the Zettelkasten, it kind of just clicked for me, and I was like, I've got to teach this to my kids. And where my mind instantly went to was the skills. Like I believe it was I think I pronounced it right in the post, a Leitner box. Is anybody familiar with that? Yeah, okay. That was really textile and really easy for both my 8-year-old and my 10-year-old just to flip through. My 8-year-old is just turned 8, so he's still on his tail end of his blends, and that really worked well for memorization. And then my daughter is toying with Latin. She wanted to learn something. She suggested French, and I didn't know French, and so I suggested Latin. And so she was like, yeah, sure, Dad, whatever. But she just got about 100 vocab words in there.
Oh.
But then poetic thought, I taught my juniors and seniors a very simple poetry class because they hated it, and it broke my heart.
Yeah.
But all I did was just take some sort of poetic element and teach it a new one every week. So whether it's a rhyming scheme or whether it's syllable count or whether it's even the fundamentals of poetry, like a stanza line, that kind of thing, just real simple for kids that had never read poetry before. So I started doing that to my kids, just thinking that I could help practice recognizing those patterns, maybe would be a good way to say it. So with the Lightner box, the journaling, and the poetic thought, that really was my foundation. I mean, I'm just, I've never done this before. My kids are only 10, 8, and 3, and then I've got a 1-year-old who's not quite old enough yet. But yeah, so I'll throw that out there for maybe some thoughts and comments, and see what y'all think about that.
Okay, who wants to respond?
Amazing.
Alexa.
I think it's amazing what you're doing, Will. And I love that you added the poetry to it. That's phenomenal.
Now that you're in LiLLiPub, you might be interested to know that Victoria is actually going to be teaching a course on reading poetry with the Zettelkasten, and she's going to teach Paradise Lost and The Wasteland.
Yeah.
So that should be quite a fun course. So you might want to check that out.
Yeah, definitely. And so I do have a follow-up, because I want to hear what you guys think about the idea. Do you think that at that young of an age, let's say before 5, am I onto something, thinking about focusing mainly on the skills, or do you think the concept should come in some way, whether just introduction to the vocabulary? I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, I think you can get one of the most important concepts, to my mind, of the Zettelkasten is the interaction of ideas. Now, you've been saying that you really need to wait till middle school before they can handle abstract ideas, and I agree with you. That's probably true. When you talk about interactions, they're quite capable of interactions at a very young age. And so if you're dealing with art cards, you could let the child pick, well, where do you want to put the new picture? What picture do you want to put the new one next to? Oh, why did you pick those two? What do they talk to? Those two pictures talk to each other? What do they say to each other? And that already gives them the concept of letting two cards in the Zettelkasten interact and form a conversation. And that's a very conceptual, but it's being taught at oh, this is fun. What did they say? It's taught at a play level, but it's still foundational to a Zettelkasten.
Right.
That might be clever language too. The idea, instead of having a conversation there, which ones want to play with each other? That's a good visualization.
Well, that's like with my granddaughters. They're all the time drawing, and I've got papers everywhere. And I had been watching a podcast of a young man that he's about, I'm going to say maybe, everybody looks younger than me. I start talking to somebody and I'm blown away when they're only 15, it's like, okay. I think he's probably in his early 20s. And he was talking about his grandfather passing away, and that when his grandfather passed away, he was given a journal that apparently his grandfather had written for each one of his grandchildren about the things that had happened when they were little and his view on all of it. And he literally, he does the podcast with 3 full-on adults, and he literally started to cry. And he says, if it ever you think about giving your grandchild a gift, this is the gift to give. He says, please, parents, stop and think about what you're gonna leave to your grandchildren. And that got me thinking. And then the Zettelcast came on, and I was like, well, yeah, that's perfect. They get to contribute, and I can always add cards in there with my own thoughts too. And they're, like I said, they're all the time trying to get on my desk and play in my cards and what's this for and what's that for, especially the oldest one. And the youngest one gets up and gets my pens and my cards, and I go to sit down, and I've got drawings all over everything. So, I'm like, they're already interested in at least that aspect of it. And that's where the memory box came in. Because if I'm contributing and they're telling the stories, I can give my view so that when I'm no longer here, they have all of that in there. As they've grown, they can add as they get their skills and they learn to understand it all. They still have all this from when they were little.
Yeah.
And, so then they get to carry it through for a lifetime. I've got a girlfriend that is a teacher in Wisconsin, and this year she's teaching 8th grade. And I sent her the link. I'm like, you need to look at this, because she reads a lot too. And I'm like, you need to get this going. And she goes, I could teach that to my class this year.
Yes.
So I sent her the minimalist series for her to get started. And then my niece is going into she's getting married tomorrow. I'm so sad because I'm not in California for her wedding, but she's going into her second year as for dental school. And I said, before you start school this summer, after you get back from your honeymoon, you need to look at this because this will help with everything that you struggled with this year. She's like, okay, Auntie, I will, and I'll let you know how it goes. So, little bits here and there, and she's 25, so she's already getting ready to go live her life and do all that she wants. But to me, if we had all start, I wish, because when I was very young, I was an avid reader, and if I had all the bib cards for every book I ever read, I'd be the happiest woman on earth, And so and my grandchildren are big readers. They love to be read too. And then they'll sit there with the book and tell me a different story than what the book is, but the pictures. And so, those are all things that I think contribute starting them out. I don't think there's really an age that it has to be started or that is better than another age. Even with your 1-year-old, if she's sitting with a crayon, you can always make notes of what the other kids were doing, what he or she was doing, fold that paper up, put it next to a card with the notes on it so that when she's 21, she's got a picture from when she was 1, and like in the post I was talking about, my granddaughter got a camera for Christmas, and she walks around the house and outside just snapping pictures, and so why not put those in there? Photography is something that I've always loved, which is why I bought her a camera for Christmas, because I know that the younger they are, the more interested they get, then they carry it through life. And to put some of the pictures that she's taken now at the age of 4, she can compare them when she's 50. She's got them there. And so I just think that it's such a beautiful gift to give them. And where they take it as they get older is completely up to them, but at least they have a foundation. They'll learn it more and more as they go. I don't intend on, having an index and the bib cards and all of the above, but starting with a memory box for them at this age, and then adding it. As my oldest one learns how to read, I can show her how to make notes on her bib cards, and we can go to the bib cards next. By the time she's out of elementary school and going into junior high, or whatever they call it now, middle school, she can know how to do all of it, and use that for the rest of her life. If it becomes part, they say that it takes 6 weeks to form a habit. So if it becomes something that you do all the time and you instill it in them now, they'll carry it with them. Even if they don't keep it up to date all the time, they'll always know how to do it. And so you're just giving them the foundation as far as I'm concerned, and some kids learn by writing, some kids learn by coloring, it depends on their how they learn. Some of them are more anal in the brain. They want to read everything. Some want to feel it. I'm one of those. I have to see it and do it. I can read the instructions, but then I have to go one step at a time to figure out what the heck they're talking about. If I do it, or I see somebody else do it, I can do it just like that, and so that's what I was trying to say in that one post, was letting them find their own way and what's best for them, rather than being stuck on, you've got to learn this, and this, letting them feel it out and find what's best for them as the way that they learn still gives them the advantage of everybody else that they're going to meet as they go through school, and so that's where my thought process is anyway.
Here.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Deb. I interrupted you.
She just said,
no, I was just giving an amen and a clap to that, because
okay. I do too. I had an idea, just to your point, Will, about concepts, but also what you're saying, Bev, about letting them find their own way to do things in a memory box. And a kind of a brainwave came to me this afternoon. I was thinking about Victoria's Zettelkasten for fiction. And because I was thinking about my son and his story making, he loved to tell stories about his teddy bear, and his teddy bear's name was Cubby. And the Cubby stories were legendary. And sometimes the Cubby stories would go on and on and on and on. But that made me think, you know, Victoria and her Zettelkasten uses characters as a way of organizing at least part of her box. And so I thought, what about an effortless stickering system? So instead of numbers, okay, I am not an artist, but let's say Alexander's 3 again. He's telling me a Cubby story. Cubby is the main character in the story. And I get him to draw a picture of Cubby, and he does. And let's give Cubby the color orange.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. And then he also loved to tell stories about Bunny, was one of his other stuffies, and you know, let's say that Bun really likes the color blue, and she's also in the story. So when there's a story that has the two of them in it,
yeah,
right? And so there's kind of a concept of how to organize things going on in here, but it would be fun. And it could just be like little stars that are different colors, or there's stickers of everything now, and they're cheap. So this would be an affordable way to do it too. But for the really little guys, that might be fun. And they're actually learning how to organize things in a system, but they don't have to know their numbers and their letters yet. And I'll bet you anything that they would learn this very quickly, because it's like you said, Kathleen, it's like, who do they want to be friends with? Where does this card want to go? And start with their idea of the important character in the story, or the topic of the artwork, or whatever it is, might be a way to get them thinking about how to organize their cards, so that the effortless numbering system doesn't kind of appear out of nowhere.
Okay.
Anyway.
Nice.
That's a brilliant idea.
Anybody with 3-year-olds, go ahead and experiment on them and let me know how it went.
My granddaughter will be 3 in August. The youngest one will be 3 in August.
Perfect.
Yeah, so
Genevieve, you didn't get a chance to introduce yourself. Do you want to do that? And
Sure. Genevieve Rasmussen. I'm in Sacramento and relatively new to the whole world of Zettelkasten. I've been over on Scott Shepherd's site, where what makes it worthwhile most of the time, it seems to me, is Kathleen's presence. And so I finally came over here to see what was on her site, and I'm enjoying it. Been only a couple of weeks over here and haven't had a chance to dig into much. I'm still working full-time, demanding job and stuff. And so right now, I'm maintaining and more of an eavesdropper on the processes and stuff. Really, I really don't have much time for anything else. Got a little gust of wind here in the backyard. So anyways, is that kind of what people were talking about?
Yep.
Their introductions?
Yep, just saying a little bit about themselves and what brought them to the group. So thank you. And you're coming up on having more time pretty soon, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm hoping in a few months I'll be retired and trying to settle on the date, but September, October, somewhere in there. Before the end of the year.
All
I'm
right.
gonna do it. Yep. So yeah, very, very much looking forward to it. And I think that's what kind of drove my interest to begin with. Is I've been spending the last couple of years, I work at a fairly high powered level. It absorbs a lot and it gives me a lot. You know, there's a lot of feedback. There's a lot of self-worth. There's a lot of mental stimulation. There's a lot of that, everything that comes from my career. And the interactions I have with people. And I knew from having watched my father, who was in a similar type of a role, with our personalities, the hazards of not having something fulfilling.
You'll be walking around singing that song, So Much Time on My Hands.
Yeah, well, I know I'll be busy because I have a ton of hobbies, but what I also want is something that meets, not just fills the time, but meets that mental stimulation and feedback to me. Because I know now, after thinking about it for several years, that this becomes, this is a huge part of what I get out of work. and one of the reasons that been so reluctant to retire.
Well, I'm glad to see you in this community, because that's one of the things that community does for us. You know, and because we're all interested in different topics, we keep our minds active, learning what everyone else is up to and what's exciting them.
Very much so.
All of this stuff is so inspiring, and I had promised myself I was going to just hang back, but you.
Hey, it wouldn't be worth watching if you weren't in it. Come on now.
Oh, thank you. So one of the things that I have to be selective, like Scott says. I have a bib card going in my head. So many things I'd love to say. But just riffing off of what Genevieve was just saying, I'm newly retired also. And one of my favorite things in all of the 500 pages of Scott's book is where he talks about the purpose of contribution in the whole use of the Zettelkasten. It says, learning for contribution. And yes, that's just a good thing for the world to be giving, right? That is almost like the gravy in a way, because when you file a main card and you keep encountering it, and it's just it's a little pocket of ideas, and there's something there, and who's going to make it except me? Whatever that something is. And what do I need to do to figure out, well, what is that something? And you're going to find gaps in it, and it starts to totally inform your reading, instead of your reading being kind of haphazard and, what's on the bestseller list or whatever. You start really being a demanding reader in order to contribute what you know is there. And, before long, your Zettelkasten is riding you like you're a mule. It's the best.
Julianne, that's beautiful. Beautiful. Oh my gosh. Wow.
And to be exposed to that when you're 10.
Yeah.
Out.
When I was driving, I think it must have been you, Will, that was talking about children and stuff, and what do you go first, skills or concepts? And I thought there might be a argument that the concepts may come first over the skills, because you could start talking about interactions between things to a very small child. And I think some of the others have said, about like the teddy bear and the bunny and the interactions there. But just thinking about driving around with my children, and we used to do math problems this way, pick out numbers and then we, they practiced math. But we could have been doing the same kind of thing with, okay, we just passed this farm and, and that house over there. What do you think, what might be going on between them or something, what did you see going on that, might mean that they talk to each other or something? I mean, that might be a silly example, but do something like that. And then you were talking about the cards, Kathleen. There's actually a couple of games on the market. They're not really games. They're meant to have that kind of a stimulation with a child. They're boring as all get out when you do them as an adult. But they make pretty art projects and stuff, but they're pictures, and then you match them. They're not the same. They're all different, but why? It's like dominoes. You pick a card. I think if I'm remembering right, there are two photos on a card. You pick one, goes to the next one, and then somebody has to put one to the net. It makes this really interesting pattern altogether. We tried it with my sister and my husband and I. We didn't get into it, but I thought if I had a child, that would be a lot more interesting to see how their mind worked.
I'm thinking that just to pick up on what you were just saying, Genevieve, the 28 character traits I think are perfect for children, because you read the story, the kindergarten story, and whatever it is, and you have them categorize, understand what modesty is, understand what each one of the character traits means and you can do it, you can demo it on every level. The simplest thing, the way that box you introduced to us the other day, Kathleen, where the children had drawn stories to represent each character trait. That could be, I mean, what a wonderful dinner time conversation, you know, for the child to understand what responsibility is, for the child to understand what orderliness is, or the lack thereof, and what you get out of it, the various forms that it can take.
And they use it in the schools for positive discipline, but it could also be used in the family for positive discipline, where you catch a child sharing or being helpful or kind, and you could make a card for that occasion and put it in that memory box. Wow. Remember that time where the older sister helped the younger sister do something that she really wanted to do, or that she shared something precious with her younger sister? Those could be stories too. And it could all be character building along with keeping your Zettelkasten.
As well as recognizing struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's not about perfection.
Absolutely. My 5-year-old granddaughter, my son and his wife are going through a very nasty divorce, and she has struggled with anger. So we praise her when she does the things that she knows she's supposed to do. And then we tell her it's okay to be angry. It really is. It's an emotion. You have to feel that. But you have to learn how to control it so it doesn't take up the rest of your day. And so that's some, looking at all the traits, those are all things, we focus on the kindness and the sharing and being helpful and all of those traits. But we also acknowledge that the in real life, things happen that are going to upset you and make you angry. And so how are we going to deal with that? And we work through that on a daily basis. She sees her mom once a week, and it usually takes us a couple days to get back on an even keel.
Yeah.
Where she's not upset or she's not angry, or, whatever the case may be, however it goes. And I think that making cards for that's a brilliant idea, and it would just reinforce all the good things as well as acknowledge the things that we struggle with. I think that's great. And we could do that and put it in our memory box,
And there's problem solving too. Say a child wants to be sharing, but the thing that the little one wants to play with is delicate and would likely ruin it if the older child let them have it. Then you have to problem solve. What could you do that would help the younger child be able to experience being part of it? Say the older child's making a model that's for school or something that's delicate. Doesn't want to get ruined, but maybe you could let the younger child, play with the paints and the cotton balls or whatever are going into the bigger project. Because you're problem solving and being creative. How can you, because not everything is like, there is practicality involved too.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I did, that I'm doing with Kathleen, our fearless leader, oh boy, the business of these character traits, and so once a month and once a week, actually, we have to write about a different aspect of a particular character trait that's being featured for the particular month, for the given month. And I just wrote a story, but in that story was orderliness in the pinnacle position. And pinnacle means it just kind of goes over your head. You just
you don't get it. Yeah,
you just, what do you mean? Dishes, I just had breakfast, I gotta go. And you don't think about washing those dishes. You're gone. You don't think about the fact that it's piling up and there's dust everywhere, and because you're so busy doing XYZ. A la Sherlock Holmes, he's too busy solving cases to be neat. But the one example that came to me was we were just talking about the labeler. Remember the old time labeler where you could punch out the letters?
Oh yeah.
Right, and then stick it on the object, the shelf or whatever. Well, one of the examples that I had was this very, very, very meticulous housewife, mother, and how she was able to solve the problem of being able to accept the help of her ADHD in her kitchen by doing what? Labeling the shelves. So the child was able to participate, and the mother didn't go crazy because the child said, "Oh, I've got a map. I can put it here and here and here and here," and everybody was able to contribute. So all these aspects are available to us that we can call Zettelkasten. So I just wanted to toss that out there.
The one thing that we're all talking about here is kind of parental or grandparental involvement, right? And that's one of the reasons that in the Zettelkast episode, although we were focused, the question focused us on how can we make this happen in schools, but I think it's just as important that in addition to the schools, that the whole environment, the whole education environment for the child, which is their whole life, until they're on their own, is a balanced approach. And it's not like you take notes when you're doing stuff because there's going to be a test, but you don't take notes when you're reading a book because you love it. Yes, you do take notes. Wish I had known that for the first 60 years of my life.
But on the other on that topic of how we get it into the education system, the more parents that teach their children, the more children are going to take it to school, and there's going to be an introduction there. Whether the kids are saying, "I'm going to put that in my ZK," or whatever words they use, because they can't say Zettelkasten or whatever the case may be, and their teacher says, "Well, what's that?" When they start explaining it, then the teacher's going to maybe go to the parent and say, "What is it that you're teaching your child?" I mean, that there's a way in there.
Yeah.
The older they get and the more they use it, most kids, when they get in school, have a bunch of friends. And if it's working for one, the friends are going to want to know about it. And next thing you know, you've got a whole group of them using it. And so it kind of infiltrates into school that way, is how I look at it. I remember when I was growing up and things that they didn't teach us, we figured it out on our own, and so there's always that way in too. It's great to get teachers and educators involved too, but sometimes what the kids are doing, the teachers and educators adjust to.
Can I throw out, I don't know if this is maybe a framework, but one of the things, and you all of you do this probably, but within the classical world, we talk a lot about our ideal student, like what the adult that leaves, that embraces the good, the beautiful, and the true. So that's our bullseye, our target. And because we define what that is and the skills or the knowledge that they need to have in order to be that, we work backwards. So we go, what would they look like when they leave out the door? Like what visions would they have? What core knowledge would they have? What things would they embrace as being a part of their reality or a part of their soul? And then we say, well, what does that look like in 11th grade, and then 10th grade, and then 3rd grade, and then 1st grade? And so if I'm allowed to use that structure and say my bullseye is a competent human that can not just, I think Kathleen, you said this in one of your mini podcasts, is like, we don't just want to use or interact with the Zettelkasten. We want to begin to train ourselves to think like a Zettelkasten. And the way I took that is that there's something with the branching that happens innate in the organization that is really making like a horizontal connection. And so all of a sudden we get these branches of information, and we're really developing synthesized thoughts like over our lifetimes, right? So if that's the type of kid that I want, that human being, whatever age it is, that can think like a Zettelkasten, that's my target. What my mind wants to do is then say, okay, if that's the target, what are the things that ideal graduate would possess? I listed out just 5 things right off the top of the head. But if we could pick something, and then what I would want to do, well, this is what we did at the school, is then I would pick something. So if it is a virtue, right? Like honesty comes up a lot. We want our kids to be honest. I would pick that one thing, and then I would say, okay, well, what would I need to do to cause honesty? What would I need to do to help give a foundation of understanding of what honesty is? What practices would habitualize honesty, and we're all touching around this stuff, right? Like positive reinforcement, modeling, maybe quizzing at the dinner table, or what were you honest about today, or what were you dishonest about today? Comparison, definition. What components of a human that can think like a Zettelkasten, what would they need to have? And then if we could define that, then I could start working backwards, and I would feel like, okay, now I really can do this, because I can start to age appropriate the habits and the information in order to kind of shoot for that target. And that way, doing it that way, then the target doesn't move. We advance in age, but the target doesn't move. And so then I can add to it or take away from it accordingly.
You know, what I love about this is the notion of relationality. Everything is so interconnected. And kids can start learning that, I see, really early. Yeah.
Well, we're drawing near the limit of the time that we have available. So why don't we go through, and if you'd like to contribute some takeaway that you've gotten from this, that a sentence or two that you are going to be thinking about as we close this one, in case we do another one in the future at some point in time. So who'd like to start us off with something that they have as a takeaway?
Well, now I have to figure out what the target is. Thanks, Will.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the hardest part, right?
Well, there's so many options, and I think that's a good question. What's the target? And so that's what I'm taking away. That's going to be on my mind for the next couple weeks. What's the target? Besides memories, what's the target?
Anyone else?
My Zettelkasten is still so new that in a way I'm lucky, because when great ideas come up in groups like this, I can just start doing it because there isn't much there to disturb. And so I think I'm going to start thinking, which card in my box does this new card want to be friends with? I think that was you, right, Kathleen? Yeah. I think that is such a perfect way to think about it as for kids, but frankly, also for us, because the numbering thing, I mean, your system is as clear as anything I've ever encountered, and that's why I use it. But even so, and maybe especially with such a new main box, thinking about who it wants to be friends with will make it easier, I think. So thank you for that.
I'm on the 28 character traits. It seems to me that encompasses almost everything, and you can think in terms of age appropriate examples. So it's almost right there, solution in a box.
Teaches everything how to be a good human, that's for sure.
Yeah.
That and everyone should have one of your t-shirts, Deb.
Yeah.
That is a fantastic t-shirt.
Anyone else want to contribute?
I think that I used to have a mentor that used to say, surely we can all agree. And my sum would be, surely we all agree that the practice is transformative. And it's not a transformative to some sort of vice. It's a transformation to virtue. And that's pretty exciting. And I think I see the passion in everybody, whether you're just starting off or whether you're seasoned. We want transformation to some sort of virtue and away from vice. So yeah, just to combine those two thoughts, that's what I definitely feel that from this meeting.
I would definitely agree that Zettelkasten will help lead you to the truth. And so I'll contribute mine, which is the idea that we're talking about cards being friends, and what would happen if you had two cards that were had the most say to each other, they weren't agreeing. And that can also be at a certain age, a child could start saying, why aren't they agreeing? Why don't these two want to be friends? What do they have that's different? And so you can start using discrimination, learning to compare things.
So see now, Kathleen, I think you need to do a video a day on how to create a card for children on all 28 character traits.
Oh, now that would be a delight, because the thing that bothers me the most, I love teaching the Zettelkasten, but my thing is the character traits. And
right.
So I've been pulled so much off into the Zettelkasten world that I pine for the time with the character traits.
Well,
so
you could combine it for kids.
Yeah.
You could combine it, and you could show the positive and the negative and make it into a Zettelkasten card.
Yeah. And following Deb's from all the way up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
From preschool to Deb and I are both 77, so in a few years we're going to be octogenarians. So what could seniors learn from the character traits we didn't need to know when we were in our work years?
Absolutely.
Anyone
I
else?
think that's good.
Anyone else?
Lots of possibilities, lots of possibility. Yeah.
One of the things that I've been hearing, and it certainly rings true for me, is the power of story at the earliest age.
Mm-hmm.
Hearing stories, the story of Bunny and my grandfather would make up stories about a character named Boo Boo. Oh, I wish. Oh, I wish. Oh, I wish. Those were, they're just very pleasant little memories that he did that. He just riffed and he would keep on going the next night. And, but with a practice of, this practice is not like putting a butterfly with a pin in it and remembering that it was beautiful. It keeps the whatever you love alive in a new way, in a new way, in a new way. And I think that the way that kids' stuff gets preserved is transformed by these ideas, because it's not, oh, I remember when. It's I am my memories of when.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyone else want to contribute before we wind it up?
Just thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then
Thank you, everyone.
Let's close for now and not say that, well, everyone here is a member of LiLLiPub. I invited outward audiences and Will joined us in LiLLiPub. So now
Just in time.
Yay. So it's easy for us to get together. There are 2 calls a week already scheduled, office hours for Zettelkasten. Tuesdays in the morning in Pacific time at 10, and Thursday afternoon at this time. So you're all welcome to come at any time and continue the discussion. And we do record all of our calls, and like this one, we promise to share with the wider world, and we might share some of the others with the wider world too, as members and contributors to the call are open to the idea.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
It was nice meeting everybody.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. God bless.
Bye.
Bye. Good night.